Hello, everyone, and welcome to Varsity Tutors, where we are so excited to dive into another fantastic lesson with our friends at the Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium. Today, we're being rejoined by lead educator of Wonders of Wildlife, Alexander Konarski, who will be giving us a closer look into a pretty swell underwater dwelling reptile, the sea turtle. Now, we're going to take some time in today's class to learn a little more about these amazing creatures and to see how Wonders of Wildlife helps them to survive and thrive both in the wild and under their care. Now, before I hand it off to Alexander to get us started, I want to make sure we're prepared to be as collaborative as possible in today's live lesson. So just a few things to keep in mind. You'll see a chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen in your live learning platform. Feel free to use that chat panel throughout the class to ask any questions that you have of Alexander and to answer the questions he'll have for you as well. And if we don't get to those questions right off the bat, not to worry, we'll have about 10 minutes at the close of the lesson specifically set aside for Q&A. You'll also want to have your cameras close by, because if you lean into the for a selfie toward the end of today's lesson and you post that selfie on Instagram and tag us at Varsity Tutors as well as Wonders of Wildlife, you'll be entered to win a wildlife creature camp subscription. Now, I'll talk more about the details of that prize and how to make sure that you're entering correctly as we get toward the end of the lesson. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to lead educator at Wonders of Wildlife, Alexander Konarski.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley, so much. Hey, guys, what's going on? Hope you guys are ready to learn a little bit about sea turtles today. I mean, we got a lot to cover and a lot of cool things to show you. But first off, what I want to do is, you guys know I'm here at Wonders of Wildlife. Some of you may have visited us, but those of you that are tuning in from all across the country or all over the world, we are located in Springfield, Missouri, right here in kind of the center of the US of A. So now that you know where we are and where I am, I want to know a little bit about where you guys are from. So if you want to start filling in that chat box, let us know. We want to know where you guys are right now. How many of you are staying up really late, like night owls? How many of you guys are early birds? Or how many of you guys are just kind of right in the middle of your day? So let's go ahead and see some of those pop up. I want to see if I got anybody in my neck of the woods. That'd be pretty cool, because it's kind of rainy outside right now. So you know what I'm kind of dealing with over here. All right. Looks like we got some places popping up here. Oh yeah, we got a lot of people kind of, well, not super close, but a little bit near here, a couple states away. Got some people, and oh man, I don't even know if I can pronounce that, but wherever that is, that sounds like it'd be pretty cool. Okay, all right. Okay, cool, that's awesome, guys. All right, I know a lot of you guys are in a lot of cool places. So let's go ahead and just get started. We're gonna pop up our kind of template slide here so you guys know kind of what we're gonna talk about today in what order. So our first section, we are covering sea turtle basics, and that's just going to be talking about what sea turtles are. Obviously, we know they're reptiles, so we're going to dive a little bit more into that and talk about some of their features and things that are going on with them. And then after that, we're going to move a little bit into their life cycles. So I know there's a lot of different things going on when people are like, man, how old can sea turtles live and things like that. So we're going to touch a little bit on that, but we're going to start from when they're little itty bitty all the way to they reach that adulthood. And then our final section, man, we wouldn't be doing it right by talking about these guys without talking about the conservation side of it. This is one of the most important things. Actually, no, it is the most important thing when it comes to these creatures out here on our planet. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with sea turtle basics. So what about sea turtles? Well, let's think here. If you look on your screen there, you're going to see one swimming around, but you're going to see two other little guys walking around. I'm probably not fooling anyone. Those are definitely not sea turtle silhouettes down there. One of those is a turtle that you may find here in the Midwest, living on land. Another one's a tortoise. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, well, why are they up there? Well, there's a turtle, right? And then there's a tortoise. Do they have anything possibly in common with our sea turtles out here in the oceans? I mean, think about it. What's one of the biggest things that stands out usually? That's right, it's their shell. It's that big thing right on their back, Some of them have really big dome shells, some have really flat ones, some are rigid, some are really colorful, others are kind of like dull or bland, maybe for like camouflage and things like that. So that's a really good indicator right there, or a good common trait that a lot of these guys share. And other things is, well, if we look at the rest of them, especially the turtles. Now we're gonna stay away from the tortoises because those are terrestrial, they are land dwelling. They're not really going to hang out in the water, but some of our turtles that like to live in our freshwater ecosystems, What are some maybe things about them, some adaptations that they have to help them better survive and move around in their environment? We're talking mainly about, like their hands or feet. We're going to call them all legs for those guys. They don't have hands like we do. But with their legs, if you ever looked at their foot, like the inside, in between their toes, some of them are going to be padded, maybe webbed. And if you guys know anything about when you go out and swim, if you put on like fins or flippers, usually you get a little bit more kick, a little bit more power in that than if you're trying to just swim with your legs. I am not the best swimmer in the world. And so I definitely want to utilize those extra tools to help me get around. But those turtles, a lot of our aquatic turtles, they're already going to have that on them. And so that allows them to push through the water a lot better. When we look about or think about our sea turtles now, they're going to be kind of like that, only in a much more efficient and effective form. They're going to have those kind of flippers, those little forerunners out there that it's all one big paddle or one big oar, and it's just sweeping through the water. That's going to give them much more power behind their swimming capability. And so that's a lot of cool little easy things right there. And we talked about their reptiles. Now, we're going to say the reptiles, but there are always exceptions to the rule. And we're going to talk about one of those exceptions here in a little bit. But yes, when we say they're a reptile, what are some characteristics that you guys know about reptiles? I want to see what your best answers here are. I know you guys are learning about this in school. Maybe you guys, some of you may have learned this a long time ago. Some of you may just now be getting into it. But what do we know about reptiles? What is one of the main things? When we say the word blood, we have to add something before it. If we think about ourselves, I'm human, I'm a mammal, and I am a warm-blooded creature. Now, if I said reptiles are the opposite, there we go. I see you guys blowing up that chat box. That's right, cold-blooded. And so do some of you guys know the difference between cold-blooded and warm-blooded? I bet you do. Oh, yep, you're already telling me. Awesome. So with warm-blooded, what I am able to do is I am able to self-regulate my body temperature. If I get hot, I start sweating. I mean, that's just what I do. Hopefully you guys do that too. But that's going to help cool your body off. It's going to help cool your core temperature down. When you get really cold, maybe your body starts shivering, you start shaking, you're like, oh man, you get like those goosebumps and stuff going on. That's going to help kind of kickstart your warming up process. It's trying to keep your internal body warm. With reptiles, since they're cold-blooded, they cannot self-regulate. Those guys aren't out there sweating. They're not out there, chilling and vibrating to try and keep themselves warm. What they need to do is they need to find a place that's comfortable for them because they are entirely dependent on their environment around them. If their environment's too hot, they have to get somewhere that's going to make them a lot cooler so that way they can be more comfortable. If they're in a place that's really, really cold, they have to find somewhere warm really quick, or they have to move. They have to go a long ways away. And we're going to talk about that further on, especially when we start talking about some of the residents we had here for a little while. All right. Now that we know a little bit more of our sea turtle basic facts here, let's go ahead and talk about the sea turtle anatomy. Now, I got something really cool for you guys to show. I want you to study this picture real quick while I go and get it. I'm gonna be right back. Oh man, all right. Hopefully you guys have had enough time to look at that photo. I know there's a lot of words up there. Again, take one more look around it. So what I have right here is a sea turtle model. So we're gonna start talking a little bit about their anatomy. Again, remember, we were talking about their fins or their little flippers here. You see that right here? It's just one long piece. These are going to be their forewings, or their ones up front. And then you have their rear all the way back here. Now, this is going to allow them to get much more push, much more power when they're behind there going through the water. This guy right here, what is this on the outside? It's right, it's a shell or a carapace. That's what we call this top side, it's a carapace. The bottom side is going to be the plastron. And so they have two different sides to their shell here. So now that we're talking about the shell again, real quick backtracking, what is one of the characteristics about a turtle in their shell? Can turtles come out of their shells? No, they can't come out of their shells. Some of you may have seen like old shows back in the day, or maybe some today where you see a turtle popping out of their shell. They cannot do that in the wild. So right here in the middle, it goes with sea turtles and tortoises as well. Right here in the middle is where their spine or their vertebrae are connected to their shell on the inside. And so when they're born, they have this already on them, and it's little tiny, just like them. And as they grow and get bigger, it'll grow with them as well. This is a mobile unit that is always attached to them. They cannot come out of the shell. So now as we look more here, we obviously got the head. Now with sea turtles, a lot of people think, do they have noses or anything like that, or ears. Well, they will. So those will be back here, their ears, and their noses or nostrils will be right on the tip, right on the front there. And a lot of them do these pretty cool things where if they're in the water, they'll take some up, they'll pick their head up, and then they'll shoot the water straight out of their nose. It's kind of fun. If I tried to do that in like the pool, I just give myself a huge head rush or a big nose burn. Talking about on the back side here. Now, these areas, this really hard shell, these are made up of scutes. They are very, very tough, hardened material that grows with their body. It's going to make it very tough for predators to bite through and get through them. And so what we're going to do now, I'm going to give you one last good look here. Get a little bit closer so you guys can see. It's pretty cool, isn't it? All right. I'm going to go ahead and set this back down, and we're going to move on to our next portion, okay? All right, so we're going to move on and talk about what do sea turtles eat. Now, this is one that I know a lot of people already know about it, especially if you watched our last video that we did about a month ago. We were talking about cnidarians. If some of you remember what cnidarians were, those are things like jellies. Well, jellies, if you look around on the screen there, you might find them. That is a good food item for a few of the different species of sea turtles that are out here on our planet. But scan that slide real quick. Scan all the way around that view. See how many different things you can find. It's also going to be testing how much you guys are paying attention to the background of some of those other slides. Because this is the same background. There's probably a few different things. Maybe you see some fish. You're going to see some squid swimming around. Maybe down at the bottom, you see some shrimp. And then on the other side, maybe some prawns. Maybe you see a little pinchy guy crawling around down there with some nice claws. Yep, some good old crustaceans. Maybe we see some mollusks going around. Maybe see some little snails and things like that. So everything that you guys see on this slide, that is going to be a lot of common food items that a lot of the different sea turtle species eat. Now, they don't all eat the exact same thing because some of them are different sizes. Some of them have different shaped heads and different types of mouths or beaks. And so they're going to be going after different organisms. And so now we'll talk a little about what their characteristics are. We talked about their anatomy, and we've seen a little bit more about their diet. Are you guys ready to find out all the different types of sea turtles we have out there? Because I'm ready to tell you. First, actually, before we get over there to it, let's backtrack real quick. I want to see, you guys may have saw it, how many species of sea turtle do you think we have out here on our planet? Go ahead, start throwing up some numbers. Some of you that are really quick, you may have been able to count everything that was up there. Or if some of you guys did your homework before coming here, you may have looked it up. But I want to see if you can tell me how many species we have. All right, I'm seeing some good numbers. I'm seeing like 8. We got 10. Oh, someone just throwing crazy numbers out here. If we had that many different species of sea turtles, that would be awesome. But we're sitting in single digits right now. All right, I'm not going to keep you guys in suspense. Some of you guys are good. I don't know if you knew ahead of time or you just got lucky and you're good at guessing. But if you are good at guessing, I'm going to want my team next time my teacher or my coworker says pick a number between 1 and 10. But right now, living on our planet today, we have 7 different species of sea turtles. And so here's a really cool little diagram showing them all up here together. You take a quick look at it, but this isn't going to give you necessarily the best view or visual of our different sea turtles. But we have our next slides coming up that have some photos on here. It's going to give you a better understanding of what these guys look like out in the wild. And we're going to go from smallest to biggest. Go ahead and try and guess which one you think is the biggest as we're going through. So our first one we have up in the top left-hand corner there, that is our Kemp Ridley. That is the smallest species of sea turtle that we have on our planet. They can get, averaging around about 2 feet. And then you move over to our olive Ridley. Really close names, right? Why do they got to do us like that? It's really hard to remember, but they get a little bit bigger than the Kemps, but not by much. And then our next one above that, we're going to have our hawksbill. The hawksbill are really, really cool. And I actually have an artifact here that I want to show you guys. If you guys want to pop back to me real quick. So the hawksbill has a really unique skull. I'm going to get a little bit closer. So this is going to be the shape of a hawksbill sea turtle skull. And if you look right on the edge here, you see how big that beak is? That is crazy. And so they get their name from this hawk-like shaped bill. The other sea turtle species, they have very similar types of beaks, but they're not going to be like our hawksbill here. These guys are wicked gnarly, and this is really going to help them crunch down into some of their prey and get those food that they really like to enjoy. All right, I'm going to set that guy back down. We're going to move back on. So now we talked, all right, who remembers what number 1 was? That's right. Our number 1 was our Kemp Ridley, and then our number 2 was our olive Ridley, and then number 3 is going to be our hawksbill. So number 4 on our size chart here is going to be the flatback sea turtle. Now the flatback, why do you guys think it got its name? Because it's got a kind of a flat back. I like that answer. You're like, flat back, man. So their shell is going to be a little bit smoother. It's going to be a little bit flatter than some of those other species out there. And it's roughly the same size as the hawksbill. I mean, depending on where a lot of that kind of research comes from, but a lot of it, they'll be slightly, on average, a little bit bigger than that hawksbill. And so now we know our 1 through 4, we got Kemp's, olive, hawksbill, and flatback. Let's move on to our next 3, the biggest ones of them all. We have loggerheads. Now the name loggerhead, that's a pretty unique name too. It's not named after somebody. You know, it's not like Mr. Loggerhead went out and found this sea turtle one day and he's like, I'm gonna name that after myself. What happens was they found it and they went and they looked at this thing and they said, that thing's got a pretty big head on it. And so loggerheads typically are gonna have a little bit bigger, broader head than a lot of the other species out there in comparison to like their body. Now the hawksbill, again, they have a very unique beak shape. The loggerhead, it's gonna have that bigger, kind of broader head on it. Very powerful jaws as well. It's gonna really help it crush and break into different things that it likes. It has a little bit more protective shells to them, like the crustaceans and things. And so now, we know number 5 is that loggerhead. Moving on to number 6, we have the green sea turtle. Now, the green sea turtle is probably one of the most famous or more common ones that some of you may know because you can find them in a lot of different aquariums out there. Now, they are very, very cool and unique sea turtles. And why do you think they get their name, the green sea turtle? Okay, yep, obviously they're green. We're getting a little bit more specific though. What on them do you think is green? Do you think they have green eyes? Like, are they all green-eyed? Do they all have like green flippers? Are they all green shelled? Is that a bright green shell that you see back there? What do you think it is? Well, let's do a little bit of investigation here. So we know we got the hawksbill name from the hawk-shaped beak, loggerhead, bigger head, green sea turtle. They made it a little bit more vague for us. And we can see a few more answers here. Okay, all right, you guys are getting creative. Think outside the box or outside the shell, I guess, right? I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you. So they get their name from the coloration of their fat. And I'm not trying to be rude by saying fat. I'm sure there's some pretty fit green sea turtles out there. That's just what it is. But it's the coloration of their fat, and they get that from their diet. We're going to learn a little bit more about what their diet is later. I don't want to get too much away on that. But the green sea turtle gets their name from the coloration of their fat. We actually have 2 resident green sea turtles here with us at Wonders of Wildlife, and their names are Miss Pam and Miss Izzy. Now, they're both beautiful girls, but unfortunately, they cannot be re-released into the wild. They're both deemed non-releasable, and we'll cover that again a little bit later, but I do want to let you know about them. But we are not going to do them dirty and not talk about them. They will come back up, I promise. But moving on to our number 7, our big bad guy, right all the way there on the right-hand side, we have the leatherback sea turtle. That leatherback sea turtle, they average about 6 feet. They are huge. They can get up to like 1,500 pounds. They are wicked big. So with the leatherback sea turtle, you guys can go ahead if you're tired of looking at some photos there. But with the leatherback sea turtle, what's really unique about them, we talked about characteristics of reptiles, right? Remember, we said they were cold-blooded, but I told you, listen, that there is always an exception to the rule. And so leatherback sea turtles are kind of one of those crazy ones. Now, they actually do not have to rely on their environment to help regulate their body temperature. It definitely does help, just like it helps us. Like if we get hot, we go somewhere cool, it's going to help us kick up a little bit easier. And then if we're cold, we get somewhere warm. But with the leatherback, they are actually able to regulate a little bit their internal body heat. And that is pretty cool. As well with their shell, I'm going to pull up my artifact here again real quick. But all of our other sea turtle species, they're going to have this, right? That hard shell right here on the back, hard carapace, hard plastron, all that good stuff. The leatherback sea turtle, well, their shell is going to be more like leather. They're making it a little bit easy on us this time with these guys. their shell is not going to be hard. It's not going to be made of the same material. It's not going to be these scutes that are on the back of all the other species of sea turtles. They're going to have a more softer, more flexible shell, because what that allows them to do is that allows them to actually dive deeper in the ocean and really take some more of that pressure. Because if you guys know about when you dive in a pool, does anybody ears kind of feel weird? Start to like pop maybe. Some of you are really good at it. You can like pop your ears underwater. That's called like regulating with the depth, the pressure change. So with these guys, if they have a really hard outer shell, if they go down too far and they can't self-regulate inside, I mean, they can't take all that pressure. They're going to have to come back up. But the leatherback, they can go down deeper and deeper than some of these other species because they are able to have that kind of softer, that more flexible shell. So it's not really constraining on their bodies. That's really, really cool. Also, I want to make a note that sea turtles do not breathe underwater. I don't want to get into that, remember, if I didn't clarify it earlier, but they do have to come up for air. So that's why you do see them really close to the surface sometimes. They come up, they'll take some air, and they can go back down. They are champions at holding their breath. They have really well-adapted lungs to living in the ocean. And especially, again, when we talk about the leatherback diving deep, they have super heavy-duty lungs that can really take on that extra pressure. All right, so we talked about our different species. Let's run through them again real quick one more time. What's number one? I want to see it. That's right, it's Kemp Ridley's. Number two, what do we have? Olive Ridley, right? Oh yeah, and they're also a little bit green. That's why they're called Olive Ridley. The Kemps, he's going to be his own thing because somebody wanted to name it after him. We got the olive. It's going to be a little bit more green. Moving on, number three, it's the what? What is it? Which one? That's right, it's the hawksbill. Good job. All right, going up to number four, we have the what? The really flat what? Flat back. There you go. Okay, we got flat back. Then moving up, we get the big squared, big jawed out head. Right, the loggerhead. I know I'm making weird faces at you guys. It's okay. We got the loggerhead, and then moving on past the loggerhead. Let's see what kind of what one do we have next? Color what? Green. We got the green sea turtle. Perfect. And then moving on to the final big guy, the huge one that we just talked about, leatherback. You guys are on it. I love it. Right here with me. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to move past our species here, and we're going to go ahead and get into some of the range. Now, this map that you guys see in front of you here, that grayed out part and that white part, the white's going to represent like the open ocean, the places that the sea turtles are not found. And the gray part, well, those are our continents. And the sea turtles all live in the ocean. When they come on land, it's for a very short period of time. We'll cover that in a minute. But they're not going to be going into the mainland of any of these continents unless they're here at a facility like Wonders of Wildlife. But that blue part that you're seeing, what that is, that huge range, that is the range of the leatherback sea turtle. They have the largest range of any other species. And I wanted to show you this one because if you notice, right there in the middle, some of you are familiar. What goes around the middle of our planet where, you know, those tropical regions are always at and the subtropic regions? What is it? Come on. Where are my geography people at? Let's go. That's right. It's the equator. So the equator, it's basically that belt that goes all the way around the planet. The sea turtle species, all the ones we have out there, you're going to find them all the way around that belt, all around the world, except for one species. And we'll talk about him in a second. But all the other species, they're going to be within that range that you see there for the leatherback. They're not going to be as far north or as far south. Some species may get close to one of those two lines, but they're going to be in a much tighter band going around the earth there. Because again, they need to be in those areas, because what did we say? They cannot self-regulate. That's right, they cannot self-regulate. So when they start getting into a lot of those colder waters, it's going to be a lot of like harder time, bad time for them. So they got to stay where it's nice and warm. But that leatherback can self-regulate, so you will find them a little bit farther north and a little bit farther south to some of our waters. Let's go ahead and move on to our next map here. This is for the one species that unfortunately is not found all over the world, and this is our Kemp Ridley. And so the Kemp Ridley is only going to be found right there along the east coast of the US, as well as like kind of down to the Gulf of Mexico. They don't have as wide of a range as all of the other species. There's going to be right in that little tiny pocket right there near North America and South or Central America. All right, moving past our map here. We're getting into life cycles now. I know, ooh, we've made it to the life cycles part. So this is going to be a little bit more interactive. I'm going to turn my back on you again one more time. I apologize, I keep turning around, but I got something really cool I want to show you. So what I have here for you guys, we have a sea turtle life cycle chart. Okay. So we have 4 different spots. If you guys can see it up here, we have an empty one right here in the green. And then we have this kind of brown dirt looking patch right here. At the bottom, a very yellow spot, maybe more of a sandy color. And then on this side, we have a little bit yellow going around here on the outside, and then more of a bluer area. So again, maybe a sandy part right here, blue, kind of liquidy possibly. Well, I want to go ahead and I'm going to open the floor to you guys a little bit here too, but we're going to talk about the life cycle of a sea turtle. Now, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Or the turtle or the egg? Well, we're going to go ahead and start with the egg. How about that? So on this, let's see, where do you guys think we find eggs, sea turtle eggs? Do you think we're finding them just kind of floating out here in the open ocean or something like that? They just kind of float around, just at the will of the waves, will of the current? No, probably not, right? What about a place that's a little bit more durable? Maybe a spot that can withstand the elements a little bit better, offer some protection where things can't get to them. You guys know what I'm leaning to? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's the beach, right? So we're gonna find them like up here in the beach, right here in the sand, maybe a little bit off the beach, so that way they're away from the tides, and the tides aren't always coming up and washing away right on top of them. They're gonna be set back a little bit further. And so we're gonna have some nice sea turtle eggs back in here. And now, when a female sea turtle lays eggs, they can lay quite a bit at a time. We call them clutches. And they can lay, sometimes 60, 80 eggs in a clutch. That is quite a bit. And what they'll do is during that period of when they're actually out there nesting and they're out there laying those eggs, they'll come back and lay multiple clutches throughout their breeding season. And that's pretty cool to think, is that they're not just dependent on one nest. They actually will have multiple nests sometimes. Now, offering something else before we get too far into this, what do you guys think a sea turtle egg looks like? I got a couple other little things here. I got 2 different shapes I'm going to hold in front of you. We have a traditional egg shape, what we think of like most birds, like a chicken egg. And then I have a golf ball. This is obviously like a circle. I don't know if any of you guys golf, but if you try to golf with a ball that looked like this, you are playing some funky kind of mini golf or some crazy new rendition of traditional golf. We're going to use something that's like this, small, circular, and a lot easier and a lot more fluid. But what do you think a sea turtle's egg looks like? Some of you guys think I'm trying to throw you a trick question, don't you? Yeah, oh, I see you guys answering here. All right, let's do a quick vote. We're going to do the do-do-do-do-do-do-do. For some of you that aren't old enough, that is the Jeopardy theme song. I may be dating myself, but some people will know what that is. All right. Yep. All right. Most of you guys are correct. You know that I'm like kind of reverse psychology here, but sea turtle egg shape is going to be like this guy over here, right? Nice and round and solid. It's going to be like more of this circular shape. It's not going to be super oblong. And when they come out, the female sea turtle, they will actually kind of go up the beach there. They will go all the way far back, away from where the waves are crashing against it, pulling sand out and pushing sand back over. That causes a lot of different erosion, and it can really affect the nest, and as well as the temperature of the nest. And a lot of times the eggs are dependent on the temperature of their nest to determine whether the egg is going to be female or male. But they're going to crawl all the way up in that beach, kind of like this big army crawl. But they have a really cool thing on a lot of their fins, as long as they haven't had them ripped off, but they'll have claws that'll stick out. Little tiny claws. You ever think about that? It's not like Wolverine claws that are going to pop out of your hand and they're going to go like, and go at anything. Just little tiny claws. And some researchers will believe that this adaptation may be on its way out, but that they will actually help female sea turtles come all the way up on that beach a little bit when they're trying to drag. And so when they get up there, they'll dig out a bunch of sand and make a nice pit, and they'll start laying their eggs. And as long as they are not disturbed or feel threatened, when they finish laying their eggs, they'll cover it all the way back up with sand, and then they'll go back out to the ocean. And now, depending on how far into the breeding season they are, they may do this, 4 or 5 times, depending. But they're going to come back, they're going to lay their eggs, they're going to cover them up, and then they're going to go back to the ocean. So now that we have our eggs in the nest, what do you guys think comes next? What's going to come after the egg? Oh, probably the egg hatching, right? All right, well, now imagine this. Imagine you hatch out an egg and you know nothing of the world yet. All it is blackness at this point because you are buried underground. Now, for some of us, that would be completely frightening to think about at this moment in time because we know that's not how it happens for us. But with the sea turtles, they don't know any better. So all they're going to start doing is they're just going to start kind of moving. They're going to start moving around. They're going to expose that nest. They're going to breach out of it. And then the first thing they're going to do, they just have this calling, and it's kind of pulling them right toward the water, right toward the ocean. And if they're born at night, the moonlight helps guide them to the water. And so that is what they're going for. That is almost their sole purpose at this point, is to get out of that nest and just get to the water. It's a primal instinct that they have to get out there. So start right there. We have our turtle bursting out of its egg, bursting out of the sand, and then it's going to make its way to the ocean. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit. We see how many eggs we have up here, right? We have one guy hatching down here. Well, as we start getting over, our amount of sea turtles is going to get down a little bit, and that has to do with the circle of life. We're talking about the sea turtle life cycle, but we also have to talk about the circle of life. And so when these sea turtles come out, do you think there's other animals or organisms out there that are hungry and looking for a quick meal? You betcha. So these guys have it right out of the gate. They're coming out. They're like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. They got to dig their way through sand. Then they got to pass this gauntlet of hungry predators all the way down to the ocean. But I'll tell you what, when they make it to the ocean, that is a heck of a time because they start getting out there. They're going to start growing. Now, they're not completely out of the woods yet. They're not completely out of danger because when they get out there, it's not like they sprouted and grew a couple extra feet by the time they reach that water's edge. They're still tiny. They're still out there in the big open blue trying to find their way to other sea turtles. They're still trying to survive. And so their diet, they're going to have to be able to prey on small things at that point. They're going to be looking for all the little tiny things out there. But then if they're successful at finding and avoiding predators and other things like that that may challenge them in their life, they are going to grow into these juvenile sea turtles that are going to get bigger and bigger. They're going to know what's going on. They're going to be a lot more adept at surviving. They're going to have those honed in skills. And then when they finally reach adulthood, guess what comes next? That's right. You got to find your sea turtle pair. And so the adults, the males, this is where it gets kind of fun too, because when we talk about sea turtles, and do you think all sea turtles come up on land? Maybe. Some of you are saying no, because we know who comes up on land, right? Who comes up on land? Is it the male sea turtles or is it the females? Most of the time it's the females, but when do they come on land? Right, only around that breeding time. All the rest of the time, they are staying out there in the oceans. That is where they want to hang out. That is where they want to be. They are not going to come over here where it's harder to move around. I mean, with us, if we were trying to survive, would you want to be somewhere where you could barely move and barely defend yourself? Or would you want to be somewhere where you feel much more confident, much more secure and safe, knowing where your food is being provided for you and knowing where you can go to seek refuge? Right, you're going to stay out there in the open ocean. So most of the time, the males, they're never going to come back. They're never going to come back to the land or any other beach if they can help it. Only the females are the ones that are going to make this trek back. And once they're out there in the open ocean, again, we looked at that range map, they're all over the world. And that goes for every species except for that Kemp Ridley's. But all the other species, the reason they're all the way around the world like that is because they travel great distances. They will travel miles and miles and miles, thousands of miles in order to find feeding grounds so they can forage for their food and it's plentiful for them. They're not just going to stick in one spot and hope that their food is always available for them there, because that's not how it works a lot of times in the animal kingdom. They have to go where their food is. So they are going to go all over the world looking for it, but they're also going to be traveling the world again when it's time to find their breeding grounds. And researchers are still baffled today about this, but it's like how we've always heard that sea turtles will sometimes go back to the same beach that they were hatched. But researchers are like, how does that happen? How do they know? How can they find their way? You know, do they leave signs back and forth? Like, hey, remember to take a left at the coral up here to go down Albuquerque Avenue, you know? They don't do that. I've never seen a sea turtle directional sign out there. I've never seen anyone else find one. They just know, it's instinctual in them. And so they will travel back to those areas to breed. And so they go all over the world. And again, once they have found their sea turtle mate, it's time for that breeding life cycle. They're going to come back to the beaches, but again, just the females. They're going to come back to our beaches. They're going to crawl up on land, and they're going to start this process all over again. And that is going to complete our sea turtle life cycle. And that, I think, is really cool, just to know that these guys face so much adversity when they just straight out of the gate, so much of it. But when we see these guys out there in our oceans, we think to ourselves, like, they are just some of the most majestic creatures that we've ever seen. I don't know if any of you guys have ever gotten to see one out there, but I got the lucky opportunity when I was in the Bahamas once. I was snorkeling. I wasn't even looking for them. It was just kind of one of those little adventures we do. And I looked over and I saw 2 sea turtles right underneath me. It took my breath away. Literally, because I stopped paying attention and I kind of sank down a little bit and my snorkel went underwater. But I was also taken back by just how beautiful those creatures were. They were just so majestic in the water. They were used to people by that point, so they were not really afraid of me, and that's good and bad. We'll get into that, but they were just right there, and it was so cool just to be able to witness that. Now, I've also gotten to see our sea turtles here, and yes, Pam and Izzy are also majestic, but it was a disconnect to be able to see these guys in the wild, and that is where we want to keep them if we can. We want to keep them in the wild. We want them to be able to survive out there. We want them to thrive. We want them to do well. We want them to be here for future generations to come. And so that is very, very important. And we talked about Miss Pam and Izzy. And moving into our next area here, we were talking about rehabilitation programs and rehabilitation facilities. And so when we're talking about that, we go, well, what is that? What is a rehabilitation program? Where are they found? Who runs them? You know, and like kind of what's their purpose? So what are they? Rehab programs, their sole purpose is to find injured or sick animals or organisms out there and try and get them back to full health to be able to be reintroduced and re-released back into the wild so they can live full, long, and healthy lives, you know, whatever nature is intended for them. Sometimes we are successful and sometimes we are not. Sometimes with organisms, we take them in and we do a good job and we can get them healthy, we can get them kind of repaired up, and we think, okay, they can do pretty good out in the wild now, but some animals have different cognitive abilities and they will imprint on people. And if that happens, sometimes that's not good because we think, oh, it's cool that this animal is no longer afraid of me and I can get really close to it and I can really appreciate it. It's not afraid of me, you know, it wants to be here. But out in the wild, that can sometimes be a bad thing depending on where we are. And like with sea turtles, if sea turtles are too comfortable or too used to people, too used to humans, they may wander into areas that are not going to be good for them, whether it's busy marine traffic areas where you have boats zipping up and down the coastline or in their different waterways, trying to get from here to there, or just recreational. And normally that's not where sea turtles are found, but they've gotten used to it and they're used to the noise. They're used to seeing the people around and they wander into those areas. It is very hard to see things on the water sometimes, especially if you're going, you know, 40 knots a mile, and you go going down there. It's moving. The water's doing this, waves are coming up and down. You may not always get to see them, especially if they're diving and they only come up for a brief second for air. A lot of times with our sea turtles are boat strike accidents. That is a huge cause for a lot of sea turtle injuries that are not sustained from other organisms or other animals in the wild, but is instead caused by people. It is going to be a boat strike, whether again it's a boat or like a sea-doo or something like that. And now another thing is when they get into some of these areas, they're also going to be finding things floating in the water because we're not always the best about picking up after ourselves. Now, we always want to say we're doing the best that we can. And I truly believe we can and we can get there. Sometimes things happen and our trash doesn't always make it in the can. And we just need to be better about that, because what did we say was one of our sea turtles' favorite food for a lot of our different species? Talk about these guys, right? These are jellies. So this guy, he looks real nice and scrumptious, right? Really nice and long and flowy. Like, ooh, man, that looks good right there if I'm a sea turtle. Well, now think about this. We're in an area where some stuff maybe is in the water. Maybe it's gotten shredded up a little bit. It doesn't really look like what it used to, but there's still enough of it to kind of linger and hang around and float back. Maybe it's made of a material that can't digest, or maybe something like this. And so what this is plastic straw wrappers. And so they can get tangled, matted, and knotted up, and then they can start to float around together. So if this was in the water, what does this look like? Kind of like a jelly, right? So if I was a sea turtle, you know, I'm out here, I'm hungry, I'm starving, I'm looking for food, anything I can get. I see this floating around. I think, oh man, that's an easy meal. I go up, I snag it, I start eating it. I'm not gonna eat this in front of you. I can't process it either. But we go up and we snag that, we start eating it, then we quickly realize this is something that's not good for us. And we try to expel it. If we can't get it out, if we can't get it out, then it's causing this whole problem. We're not paying attention anymore. And then we get caught in something else that's hanging down in the water. Maybe we get tangled in a net or something else like that. And now we're in a serious problem. And luckily, there are a lot of people out here that are doing some really good stuff, really good things. They're out there picking up this trash that's floating around. They're helping finding those animals that may be getting tangled in like nets or different things going on out there. And they're getting these guys back to the areas they belong. And so that is the silver lining. That's the good side of it there, is that we have people out there actively doing these things to help these creatures that may be wandering in the wrong areas. But we talked about that as like one of the #1 causes of being a boat strike. We're talking about Miss Pam and Izzy. So the reason Miss Pam and Izzy are deemed non-releasable, if you remember me talking about that earlier, is they both sustained injuries in the wild. Miss Izzy, she was found having issues swimming. She was doing this really unusual swim pattern. And when people were watching her, they just thought maybe she needs to be checked out. Maybe she needs to be looked at real quick. So they did it very quickly. They were doing it very safely. They were trying not to be invasive with her, and they did not want to be as super hands-on. Again, because if we're hands-off, that animal's not going to have the possibility of really kind of getting used to us. It's going to be like, whoa, what's going on? Like, I don't really want to be around you. And that's what we want. We want to keep that kind of natural deterrent of like, hey, like, let's keep our distance here. But they checked her out, and what they found is she had a fractured inner ear. And they're not entirely sure what happened, but most likely it was probably caused by a boat strike. And so they took her in, they rehabbed her. She came all the way from North Carolina, and now she has to go through a lot of different checks and regulations to be able to be deemed to go back out into the wild. And what they found is that they put her back out there, they did not think she was going to survive. They thought she was either going to be really easy prey for another animal, or she was not going to be able to forage for herself. She was not going to be able to find food. And so she came here to Wonders of Wildlife to live here with us. And she is rocking and rolling and doing really well. She still sometimes she'll do a spin or something like that. And we go, oh, there's Izzy. But she gets to receive care every single day. She doesn't have to worry about where her food is coming from. It's provided for her. And so she is living a very happy and healthy life here now. And you guys can see her if you come out to visit us. But don't forget, we have one other gal in there with her, and that is Miss Pam. Again, she is another green sea turtle, and she was also a victim of a boat strike. And so what happened with her, she actually suffered an injury on the back of her carapace. So going back to our sea turtle model here, she had an injury back here on this lower half. And what happened was it was actually able to heal back up. And then what happened is there was gas that got trapped inside of her carapace, inside of her shell. And so when she swims, a lot of times she swims like this. You know, her butt kind of sticks up. It's called bubble butt syndrome, and that's not made to necessarily be funny or anything. It sounds kind of quirky, but it's called bubble butt syndrome. And what it does is it really messes with her buoyancy. She's not really able to get that butt down all the time. Now, there are some days where she can bring it down, but then it'll kind of go right back up. This doesn't mean she shoots up like a rocket out of the water and she's not able to dive. She is able to dive, but it takes a tremendous amount of effort for her to get down there to the bottom of our exhibits. And so what we have done and what we have helped her with, I'm going to grab a smaller representation here of Miss Pam, but we have attached weights right here on the backside of her carapace, 2 little weights. And so what that does is that helps her kind of level out a little bit, helps her swim around a lot more comfortably. She's not having to expend near as much effort, near as much strength or energy into keeping herself level. And she gets around the exhibit just fine. She will motor around that thing super, super well. But sometimes those weights come off. And now that's okay because she's here with us. And so when we notice her weights are missing, we just go, oh, Pam, you lost another weight. And so we go in there, and usually losing weight's a good thing, but we go, we're going to add some of that back on there. We make sure it's nice and sticky. And the adhesive that we use is non-damaging to her shell. It is not going to harm her carapace or her scutes at all. It is completely natural, and it sticks on there again, and then she's able to keep on going and just motoring around. And she is a little bit smaller than Miss Izzy over there, but she gets right in there when it's time for food. She is no backing down gal. She gets right in there and gets it. And so now that we've talked a little bit about the rehab side of it, what the point of a rehab facility is, where are they found? Well, they're found all over the place. A lot of times, especially with sea turtle rehab centers, you're going to find them along the coast because where do sea turtles live? They live in the ocean. So it just makes sense to have them closer to where those animals are from. But there are sometimes places that just have too many sea turtles. You know, there's too many to take care of. Maybe there was a cold stun event or a red tide event, and they're like, we need help. We need some serious help getting all of these animals looked after and taken care for so we can get them back out in the wild where they belong. And that's where facilities like Wonders of Wildlife comes in to lend a helping hand. We are a sea turtle rehab facility as well. And again, we are here right smack dab in the middle of the United States, right there. There's no ocean near us. You could probably go east or west, and it'd be close about the same distance. I know some of you guys are like, it's a few hundred miles difference, but to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I'm taking a plane either way I go. Even if I wanted to go south to the Gulf, that's a long drive. So we are not anywhere close, but we have sea turtles here, and we actually took in 12 loggerhead sea turtles that really needed our help. They were part of one of the largest cold stun event of forever. The largest cold stun event we ever had was last year, and a lot of our facilities along the East Coast were just overwhelmed. They were trying to take in as many as they could, but they just did not simply have the room. And they were reaching out, they were looking for help, and that is where we kind of stepped in. We're like, hey, we want to help you guys. What can we do? And so we took 12 in, we rehabbed them, and it's a very great successful story because they are actually back out in the wild. They were taken down to the Gulf of Mexico, and they were released by Panama City Beach in Florida. It's a wonderful thing, and you guys get to see that in a little bit. But that is kind of where some facilities are, what their purposes are, and who are people that run them? People just like you and me. People that have a passion and a drive to help our wild and natural world. Those that see what's going on, they see if there's problems, and they want to be helped and be a part of that solution. They want to do whatever they can to get in there. And now it's, like I said, it's you and me. It's not just me because I work here. I have the very fortunate ability and opportunity to be a part of something like this, but you guys tuning in right here, you are also part of that solution. And so it just takes all of us wanting to get out there and be proactive and be a part of it. And so without a little bit further ado, we're going to kick it over to one of my friends over in our aquatic holding facility. Her name is Holly Blackwood, and she is one of our lead aquarists on that side. And she had a lot going on with the sea turtle loggerheads that were over there and kind of taking care of them. So let's go ahead and we'll get that going.
Hey guys, I'm Holly Blackwood, and I am the lead aquarist here at our Sea Turtle Center and Aquatic Holding Animal Facility. I've been working with animals in zoos and aquariums for the last 8 years. To get started in this field, I studied zoology and natural resources. I did several internships at different aquariums, a lot of volunteer work, and I became an avid scuba diver, and I even have an automotive degree, which is a little different. I've been working with sea turtles, including 4 different species, throughout the entirety of my career. Everything from hatchlings that were part of a Head Start program to turtles that were in need of rehabilitation and large animals that were deemed non-releasable. Now, I know you guys just got to meet Pam and Izzy, our resident green sea turtles here at Wonders of Wildlife, and I'm standing here today with 12 loggerhead sea turtles. These 2 species have some noticeable differences. Loggerhead sea turtles, who are primarily carnivorous, were named for their exceptionally large heads and strong jaws that allow them to crush down on their favorite prey items like whelks, clams, and horseshoe crabs. Their shells are usually a reddish-brown color compared to the green coloration that you saw on Pam and Izzy. The adult green turtles are herbivores. They feed on seagrass and algae. This diet is what gives them their greenish-colored fat, hence the name green sea turtle. This exhibit is dedicated to our Sea Turtle Center, and it holds 16,000 gallons of saltwater. We are able to use this exhibit in several ways that aids in the rehabilitation of these animals. The system supports a few different types of filtration that is designed to keep the water clean, which is no easy task for 12 sea turtles who are offered 3 to 5% of their body weight in food during the rehabilitation process. We can provide the animals with plenty of space and adjust the water level and temperature to match their health needs throughout their time here with us. The purpose of Rescue or Rehabilitation Center is to provide both immediate and long-term care for sick animals and injured animals with the goal of release so that animals can fulfill their ecological roles. When we're dealing with endangered or threatened species, every individual that we can release back into the wild is a crucial step towards the survival of their species. Sea turtles are facing many natural and human-induced threats like boat strikes, entanglement, and hooking, oil contamination, and the ingestion of trash. These 12 loggerheads were rescued in the Cape Cod area as part of one of the largest cold stun events in recorded history. Cold stunning takes place when the water temperature drops below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The turtles are ectotherms, which means they rely on outside heat sources of their environment to regulate their bodies. The freezing temperatures and weather cause these animals to become lethargic and unable to swim. Hypothermic reactions may include lower heart rates, decreased circulation, and lethargy, followed by shock and pneumonia. Sea turtles in this situation are extremely vulnerable to predation. They may be hit by boats or be victim to drowning or stranding. Sea turtles near coastal areas are more susceptible because the shallow waters will actually experience a more rapid fluctuation in temperature. The loggerheads in our care are recovering quite well after treatment and have been cleared for release to the wild. This wasn't the case for our green sea turtles, Pam and Izzy, who were declared non-releasable. Non-releasable sea turtles have been rehabilitated but have permanent disabilities that are determined by attending veterinarians and U.S. Fish and Wildlife to preclude their potential survival in the wild. Individuals in our care were evaluated and given specific plans in the aid of their recovery. Our husbandry staff and veterinary staff successfully conducted physical exams that included x-rays, blood work, weights, and pit tagging. This information helped us determine what dietary and medical needs were needed for the animals. The turtles were fed 3 times a day, every day. Each was offered a certain percentage of their body weight in food, depending on where they were in their recovery status. Our biologists spend a lot of time carefully preparing diets, feeding, and recording each animal's food intake, behavior, and health observations every day. The everyday care of the loggerheads was quite an undertaking, but one we've been so honored to do. Rehabilitating sea turtles has been such an amazing conservation opportunity for Wonders of Wildlife to participate in right here in the Midwest. We look forward to releasing these animals back into the wild soon. Thank you guys all for tuning in.
All right, that was an awesome information. And little input there from Holly. Again, she's done amazing work here with us, but so has our entire team. We've had a lot of people involved back here with the sea turtles when they came and stayed with us. We had all hands on deck for them when they got here, and just throughout their entire time being here, constantly going back to doing rotations, making sure that they were getting fed 3 times a day, and making sure we were getting in there and cleaning that the best we could to make sure that they had the best environment to get back to their fully healthy status and get a little bit better from that cold stun event. But that's what we talked about, you know, with them being reptiles and being cold-blooded, they get trapped and they get stuck in those areas where the water isn't wanting to cooperate with them. You know, they can start to face some serious issues. But luckily, we got these guys back here, we got them taken care of, and they are back out there happy in the wild. And so I think we've done an amazing job here with them, and I hope that someday you guys can come out here and see us, and we'll definitely let you meet Pam and Izzy because they are wonderful gals as well. All right, Haley, do you have anything else I think we need to cover here? All right. Oh yeah, mission conservation. There we go. So our mission conservation, the whole add-on part of it here, I thought that was a little bit after our Q&A, but we're going to do it right now. Mission conservation, what we have for that is, if you tuned in last time to our show, we had one for the Nigerians. And so what is mission conservation? It is a augmented kind of virtual reality game where you can go and stay at home and you can get on your device and you can learn more about what is going on with our sea turtles. And as far as sea turtles out in the wild, you get more information. If you paid attention here, it's definitely going to help you out in answering some of those questions. But the best way to do it, let's go ahead and we're going to flip up the web page here and just actually show you guys how to get that going. Because at the very end on our outro slide, we're going to have it down at the bottom, the link that you guys are going to type into the URL. But right up there at the top right, you guys are going to see how to download the app. It's in that blue box. You click on that, it's going to give you some really good instructions on how to find it on your devices, whatever you're using, whether again it's a little mobile device or a tablet or things like that. And that's going to give you the best instructions. And once you have the app downloaded, you scroll down here on our webpage, you're going to look for Agent Tyler Turtle. There he is. He's going to have a great little bio there to get you guys ready and going for the mission. And then again, at the bottom, just a little bit below him, you're going to see instructions of once you're inside the app, make sure you guys log in, create an account. You don't have to do anything else crazy with it. It's entirely free. But when you create an account, it'll track your progress for you. And so once you're logged in, you're going to search into mission conservation there. That's what you're going to look for. You're going to see Wonders of Wildlife. You're going to see our different missions that we have available. Make sure you find Agent Tyler Turtle and the Sea Turtle Exploration, and that'll get you started and get you going. Once you finish and complete the mission, you're going to be awarded something really cool. It's going to be a badge, but there is going to be something extra there. And I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. I want to make sure you go find it. But a lot of you social media users, social media fans, maybe the Snapchat variety, you guys are going to get a kick out of what the little extra bonus there is at the end. And if you guys want to further and continue your knowledge about our wild world, we have multiple missions available up there, and we have new ones coming all the time. You know, so please check those out, get in there, and be proactive with it. All right.
All right, thank you so much, Alexander. Now it is about that time, as Alexander mentioned, for our selfie. And as we're grabbing our cameras and getting ready for that selfie, as a quick reminder, if you post those selfies on Instagram and you tag us here at Varsity Tutors, as well as Wonders of Wildlife, you're going to have the opportunity to win a wildlife creature camp subscription. It's a part of our virtual summer camp series. And in this one-week camp, students are going to have the opportunity to learn about all sorts of wildlife, from those with scales and scutes to feathers and fur and everything in between. And you'll have the opportunity to complete unplugged and after camp challenges and receive specialized content from our camp guest stars. Now, it looks like we're about ready to roll, so we're going to go ahead and get things ready for that selfie.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop up our Miss Pam prop here too. There we got it nice and in the shot. Hopefully I'm centered good. I'm not covering either one of them up. All right, whenever you're ready, Haley. All right, let's get some good selfies here. There we go. Perfect.
All right, if you haven't had the opportunity to do so just yet, we're going to take just a moment or two. We want to be conscious of your time and answer just a quick question or two that were asked by several of our students before we wrap up. And Alexander is very excited to talk about all this stuff, so I'm sure he'll be smiling along, and you're welcome to lean in at that point as well. So one of the most common questions that we got, and maybe students were paying really close attention and sleuthing this out toward the beginning of our lesson, but we're wondering whether that leatherback sea turtle is really the largest. Maybe they saw an outline of something that looks a little bit bigger.
Oh, okay, yeah. So maybe some of you guys are paying attention there a little bit on that slide that had there's a kind of a diagram of all the different sea turtle species we had. And we have Haley's talking about, some of you guys maybe chatting over there in the box, that outlined one down in the corner, maybe saw a black question mark. So the leatherback sea turtle is the largest living species of sea turtle today, but there was one much bigger that lived a long time ago, about 66 million years ago, and that was the Archeon sea turtle. They grew to be about 13 feet big, or 13 feet long. They were massive, but something really cool, the leatherback, they were still around the time of that big old monster, but they looked small in comparison. I can only imagine seeing one that was 13 feet. Putting this leatherback right next to it. That'd be like putting a Kemp Ridley right next to a leatherback sea turtle. That'd be insane. So some of you guys have really good eyes, and I'm gonna give you props for paying attention and really sleuthing that out there in that slide. But awesome, yep, the leatherback, largest living today.
Awesome, thank you so much. Definitely paying really close attention on that one. Now, we got to talk a lot about largest and smallest and lifespans and all of those questions that have been coming in throughout class, but we'd also like to know what your personal favorite type of sea turtle is.
Well, I may be biased, but my personal favorite is going to be the green sea turtle. And that is because I don't know any better sea turtle out there than Miss Pam and Miss Izzy. They are two great gals. They've been a wonderful time to work with. I've gotten to do really cool things with them, whether it's feeding them or getting really up close and personal with them. So I feel like I have a little bit more of a connection with the green sea turtle than I do the other species. They're all really cool, but I'd have to say the green is absolutely my favorite.
All right, and in the interest of time, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up, although I think we've got a little bit of a special surprise right as we wrap class up in just a moment. So before we go ahead and round things off, thank you once again to Alexander and to the whole team at Wonders of Wildlife. I'd love to hear if you have any final thoughts for our students.
Yes, final thoughts, guys. Honestly, what you're doing today is amazing. Now, getting out there and getting informed, that is the first step at taking action and helping our wild world and helping further the message of conservation and preservation. And so tuning in here today, I want to give you guys praise and applause, because that is the first step on this road and on this journey. And hopefully we'll see you guys down the road in the future on it, and that would be so amazing. And of course, my final thought here as well is that Wonders of Wildlife is actually up for a running or a voting per se for America's Best Aquarium for 2021. And if you guys have liked this video, you've come out here and visit us and you liked our facility, we please ask that if you would please go on to USA Today, give us a like, show that appreciation. That would do us wonders out here, and we'd really appreciate it. But yes, being time sensitive here, I really respect you guys again. Sorry, Mom and Dad, I'm a talker, but we love you guys being here. If you'd like to stick around, we do have a very special presentation here, because as you're paying attention, Holly said hopefully we can re-release them back out into the wild. Well, we did, and we have a really cool video here showing that journey from when they got here to Springfield, Missouri, back out into the wild of Florida. And it's only about a 2-3 minute long video. But if you want to stick around for it, call me out, Mike. Here we go. Let's roll for it.
It was a great flight here. We had pretty good weather most of the way. A little bit of a headwind. It would have been nice if we didn't have that, but it just gave us a little more time with the sea turtles. This is very unusual, actually. It was great. we actually made a stop in Indiana, and you should have seen the crowd we had there. They found out the plane was full of sea turtles. Who's going to think that there's sea turtles in the Midwest, right? So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, we made a stop in Indiana. First mission for me to the Midwest. Most of our missions are either on the East Coast or they're down to Florida. So this was definitely unique. Very cool.
Oftentimes, turtles are stranded up and down the East Coast or in the Gulf of Mexico, and there are coastal facilities that can take these animals in. Because this is the largest live stranding event in recorded history, organizations like NOAA have reached out to find partners that can lend support and that can help these turtles recover to ultimately be released back out into the wild.
A couple of these cold-stunned turtles came in with pneumonia. So part of our treatment is we give the ones with pneumonia a weekly injection of antibiotics to help cure that. We want to be as hands-off as possible, and we want to keep it as natural as possible for these turtles. So we don't target train them. We do what's called broadcasting, which is throwing it into the tank in random spots and having them hunt for it to try to keep that natural behavior. These turtles, once they have been rehabilitated, will be released back into the wild. So we want as little human interference as possible. We don't want to condition them or train them in any way because it's unnatural for them when they're in the wild in their natural environment.
So this means so much to the Wonders of Wildlife team. We're here at Panama City Beach. We just got through releasing our 12 previously cold-stunned loggerhead sea turtles back into their natural environment through those conservation efforts of Bass Pro, Wonders of Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, NOAA, all the other institutions up and down the East Coast and across the country that work around the clock throughout the year to help sea turtles. So there are a multitude of ways that all of our members and our fans can help support WOW's efforts to continue in these conservation projects. Our guests can come and visit us at Wonders of Wildlife, and they can experience animals that they've never seen before firsthand. People that have maybe never been to the ocean before can come see animals that occupy this amazing backdrop behind me, and they can leave our facility wanting to be a champion for that cause. They can leave there being mindful of what their actions impact in their everyday lives, their actions, and how they can impact these wild environments and these beautiful places we get to share with the world.